Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching This Is Exclusive with me, Shavan Sen. We're talking on a day that India is largely being hailed for a successful G20. And important to point out here is a declaration which is going to go a long way. Is it a catalyst towards what many are calling a changing global order? And let's not forget, on the sidelines of the G20, two major initiatives, ladies and gentlemen. One with regards to the Global Biofuel Alliance, and of course, the second big, that is the economic corridor. Joining us on this special broadcast is none other than Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri. Sir, thank you very much for joining us on Republic TV. Let me straight away begin by asking you, as a former diplomat over 3 decades of experience, who's been part of several such negotiations, how do you essentially see what we witnessed in the last 2 days with that joint declaration? A lot has been spoken about the consensus without any footnote, chair summary. Is that what you would say the biggest hallmark, or there is much more than what we are witnessing right now?
If you just choose to recall a previous profession I was in for nearly 4 decades, I would say that I've had the privilege, not only as a career Foreign Service officer, but as PR in New York and Geneva, international civil servant. I've done that also, of attending many such events. I cannot think of any single event in my experience where the level of satisfaction in terms of impact. You've had other successful meetings, but they have not been impactful. Right. Why? Because today India has emerged in a new form. In a deeply divided world, India has emerged as a unifier. The Prime Minister, in his characteristic modesty, said earlier, human-centric development in a post-COVID world, a new international order. Is this the initiation of a new international order? I would say yes. Look, the existing multilateral system anchored in the UN, it was created in 1945. The Second World War was still on. The Bretton Woods institutions were devised to work out the coordinates of a post-Second World War order. Right. Are those institutions fit for purpose? This is a question I'm asking. I'm too much of a multilateralist to say that they are no longer fit for purpose. But when you hear the United Nations Secretary General raise questions on this mark, so surely the global order, the international order, requires change. How will that change come? The Second World War produced a crisis. From the crisis was born the United Nations. The post-war order faced a crisis in 2008 because the existing institutions did not know how to respond to the world financial and economic crisis, which was created because of the crisis in the real estate sector, the spread of toxic assets like a contagion in a globalized, integrated world. And from that was born the G20. Because the G20 used to be a group at finance minister's level, which was upgraded to head of state government level. And today you have the situation, very interesting, where the next big crisis after 2008-9 comes in 2022, COVID, post-COVID, crises in food, fertilizer, fuel, and lo and behold, an Indian presidency acts as a unifier. A lot of people thought, agreement kabhi hoga hi nahi, text, koi manega nahi.
That's exactly the reason why I'm saying this is my own experience. I was there for 2 days. I was speaking to several of the foreign delegates. Almost everyone hailed the fact that, of course, this is different than what we have witnessed in the past. But they all ended up saying on the first day itself that the biggest challenge is going to be the joint declaration. I'm talking about just few hours before the Prime Minister made that momentous, I would say, historic announcement that this has really happened. So there was that element of pessimism as far as the foreign delegates or the foreign journalists are concerned. And by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there was a complete turnaround. What is it about diplomacy that we are witnessing right now under, of course, the G20 Sherpa and various others, the entire team, your cabinet colleague, and of course the Prime Minister. What is it so very different that has worked this time?
I have a feeling that everyone chose to do a bit of lazy reporting. By the lazy reporting, I mean focus on the cultural extravaganza. Meetings in 60 cities, 200 plus meeting, Indian hospitality, cultural shows, warmly welcoming people. What they did not focus on is that the Honorable Prime Minister has had a hands-on approach to this. I think it was many months ago that the Prime Minister used the expression, this is an era for peace, not war. Isn't that sentence 13, is paragraph 13? Right. And I think people chose to focus on the visible exterior. There was an Indian team with a hands-on Prime Minister, his people, the Sherpa, the young diplomats, who've been working on this non-stop. By the way, you and I didn't have a chat, but if you had asked me, I was 100% sure we'll get a declaration. I was talking to the Su Sherpa, the deputy, right, who worked with me earlier, and I was talking to him in some other context. So I said, how is it going? He said, sir, I said, don't worry, by 3:30 in the morning you'll get it. Now, they got the agreement on, in the multilateral system, plurilateral, there's a concept, ad referendum basis. We agree to the whole thing as it is, right, as here. But at the end of the day, it has to go to the, the heads of state and government for endorsement. And when the Prime Minister announced it, I must confess, I was almost, but you couldn't contain your enthusiasm. The minute the gavel came down, when the Honorable Prime Minister said, yes, good news, we've got an agreed text, etc., and the rest is history. I did a phono within 2 minutes of that because I was very sure, look, we have a tradition, but we have some of the finest youngsters with us. And I think I started by saying, heartiest congratulations to the Prime Minister and his team. They produced something in very difficult circumstances. The fact that the world is divided is a given. And the fact that you've been a unifier in this is also a given. And now for people to turn around and say, no footnotes, no this thing. Bhai, agar agreed text aa raha hai, agreed text kyun aaya? Because you were able to understand the nuances, the substantive differences of opinion. And the Chinese have expressed satisfaction with the text. Russians are okay with it. Some people say, I wish I had a little more of this. Have you ever been to an international organization where anybody went in there and said, "Main puri tajori utha ke le aaya hu"? There's a give and take and all this. Right. But if you're able to navigate through a difficult situation, then you draw satisfaction and people acknowledge that part. And what a gathering of international leaders. देखिए, आप यहाँ पे जो collected थे, और आप देखिए, these are people in person. The President of the United States flies in after what, 15 घंटे की non-stop journey होगी?
Almost 14 to 15 hours.
14, 15 hours, and he goes straight into a meeting, a substantive bilateral meeting. He's there the whole day. He goes to Rajghat, President of Brazil. Then you talked about those two events. I mean, this international corridor between India through the Middle East to Europe and supported by the United States. What an achievement in terms of the future.
In fact, I'll come to that in a short while from now, because perhaps the viewers also need to understand what is it that we have really achieved. I'll come to that, but I just want a quick, perhaps a little bit inside details. You were part of that gala dinner. You must have had the opportunity to have spoken to a few others there. What is it that you would like to reveal perhaps in terms of the interactions you've had with the global leaders? Is there anything that you will recount always?
Can I be very honest with you?
Of course, sir.
The international, the banquet hosted by Mahamahim, the President, was interesting in many respects. Look, there was a main table on which heads of state and government and foreigners. Rest of us were in round tables. I had the foreign secretary of an ASEAN country with me. I had the Sherpa of one of the international organizations. I had many other people. But I was also interested in terms of the domestic picture there. You saw the chief ministers of Tamil Nadu, of Jharkhand, of Bihar, of Uttar Pradesh, of Himachal Pradesh. You want me to count? it's a galaxy of Indian political who's who. I mean, you had the Honorable Home Minister with the Speaker, Honorable Speaker. You had the, you had the Chief Minister of UP, etc. That's one. Secondly, for somebody like me who's been around for a long time, you meet people who are your friends, who are your collaborators. I mean, just give you one or two examples. The Foreign Minister of Bangladesh and I were PRs together in New York.
Okay.
So obviously my relationship with him was very different. The Secretary General of the UN was High Commissioner for Refugees when I was ambassador to the UN in Geneva.
Right.
The President of the World Bank is somebody whom I've known almost since the time I was a student in the university. So you interact with these people in an informal, casual setting, and you can feel the electricity there. Therefore, the celebration of a successful G20 was there.
So what did they tell you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the question is not what they told me, what they told the press.
Right.
I mean, what the Chinese told the press, what the Brazilian, Argentinian president told the press, they were saying very much there. Right. So they were all very happy, with each other. I mean, the Foreign Minister of Bangladesh took me to introduce me to the, to his Sheikh Hasina, and she had the elder sister with her. So this is an informal way, but also I was so impressed with the care taken for every minute detail. The cuisine, I mean, I've attended many such events, and I have probably been outspoken on earlier occasions to say that these tend to be boring, that this was not at all. I know one of the things which many of the participants were saying, that we are amazed that meetings are running on time. Normally in a multilateral or a plurilateral meeting, when you have a large number of heads of state and government, and you have to do the logistical reconciling of which route they're coming, this afternoon session only started 23 minutes late. Of course, some bilaterals took longer.
Right.
And so as a result of it, the dinner, instead of starting at 8 o'clock, I think started at a little later than that. But because some meetings were running late also.
I also want to ask you this, Minister Puri, is with regards to you've been the permanent representative to UN. The Prime Minister on the final day essentially spoke about bringing in reforms, particularly with the UNSC. I think so. We've done everything that a permanent member should be doing. The heavy lifting on occasions like when there was a Turkey earthquake, it was India which came up. In fact, that was hailed worldwide.
When there was a tsunami in Indonesia, you did it also.
So on various occasions we have. What is it that is stopping? That we already know. But do you think the G20 now makes that push that India deserves that position in the UNSC?
Let me put it to you slightly differently. On the issue of India having the credentials, I don't think there's been ever any doubt.
Correct.
More so in the last 9 years, because you've done some heavy lifting.
Right.
Your economy now has grown from being the 10th largest to the 5th largest. But look at another thing. Are the international systems, the multilateral institutions, are they fit for purpose? That's the issue. And I think that's where an issue is being raised. But are they going to be changed because you are doing the heavy lifting? Well, till about a year or two ago, the justification for not changing the Security Council permanent member list, the opposition came from some countries who said, this is a legacy of the Second World War. To the victor belong the spoils. US has supported India's permanent membership. Britain has supported. France has supported India's permanent membership. They may have their own reasons. But today, I think you reached a stage where across the world there is acknowledgement of the fact that the new India, the Modi's India, the one that is initiating or that has provided the impulse to create a human-centric development post-COVID for a new international order with India at the center, that deserves to be a member of the Security Council. How you navigate that? Now, some people have said the African Union. We have always supported Africa. We've always supported a place for Africa in a reformed Security Council. But I think when the Prime Minister talks about reform, he also means overall reform in the manner in which we do business. We don't waste time. And I think this G20 will therefore be remembered. I also want to share with you, when the G20 was formed, there were a lot of people who were saying, this is a departure from the one country, one vote, MFN principle. A few countries will get together, form a select club, an elite club. But over the years, as the multilateral UN and the Security Council is paralyzed, as they began to flounder, more and more people will say that if the G20 can provide an impulse for the revitalization of the UN, why not?
And that is exactly what the Prime Minister has hinted. But do you see that we are perhaps on that road right now to secure it at some stage?
I am not. This is a question more appropriately addressed to the External Affairs Minister.
Right.
But I can tell you with confidence that the domestic, this thing, Modi hai to mumkin hai. Don't be surprised if this kind of personal level chemistry that I see between the Prime Minister and heads of state and government, and I saw it across, I mean, with President Biden, with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia today, with the ruler of UAE, I saw it with President Lula, with all the others. I mean, the body language between the Prime Minister and, the head of the African Union, the President of Comoros.
Quite emotional he was.
It's clear. Then you also, you're bringing a value-based approach to multilateral relations, and bilateral relations warm. They're picking up in content, but more than that, they're picking up also in terms of the, what you're doing for other countries. I mean, the COVID is a classic case in point. You not only from scratch produced 220 million doses of vaccine, but you distributed them free. And if there are 193 countries in the UN, be my guest, how many countries got the vaccine free? Certainly over 100. So that is what the Indian vaccine Maitri was only one visible manifestation of that. But you're doing that in terms of when Ukraine, the war started, you not only withdrew, repatriated 28,000 Indian students, but you brought in students from developed countries, from neighboring countries.
Mr. Puri, I just want to share one small information with you. When I told my viewers that I was about to interview you, very surprisingly, some of them end up asking, what is this biofuel thing? And because we've spoken about it in my 2 days of broadcast, continuous broadcast, I've been talking about the fact on the sidelines, the bigger focus or the bigger achievement are the two things that I believe after going through the finer details of it. One is, of course, the Global Biofuel Alliance. And in terms of numbers, I was putting this out that I also saw some of your articles that were published in the past. Biofuel, in terms of the target that we have had back in 2014, was about 1%.
1.5%.
1.5%.
Not even.
Now the target is almost achieved. It's gone above, and it's a revised target that we're talking. Ethanol blending is the other thing where we saw we didn't achieve the targets in the previously. Now we have done it much before. I want to ask you this question with regards to the alliance itself, which many thought at some point would not have been possible. Now it is happening. What is the future roadmap, and what is it for the consumers, if I may ask you?
If you had asked me this question many years ago, when I was a professional diplomat, I was accredited to Brazil, I thought my life's mission should be that India should become a biofuel producer. Why? Because it stands to reason for a country like India, which has abundant land, which has sunshine, which can grow, which can produce biomass, etc. But somehow we were not able to do it. Today, you have a situation where from 38 crores, no, I'm talking about ethanol for biofuels, not ethanol for alcohol. Some people are mixing that up. You come from 38 crore liters to what? 565 crore liters. You add another 100 crore liters of biodiesel. You need a target of 1,000 crore liters for 20% blending. We'll not only get the 20% blending by the end of 25, but we are moving slowly where a lot of people will have conscious choices, and the market has to play this thing. As biofuels production increases, consumption increases, percentage of mixing in fuel increases, green hydrogen comes on the market, you will be spoiled for choice.
Right.
Whether that will happen between 2030 and 2035 or 2030 and 2040, I don't know. But the fact is only this Prime Minister has been able to set it in motion.
Right.
As it is, you stopped at 1.5% and you were stuck there. Just now before I came on the air with you, I had the head of Unica, that's a Brazilian cooperative which is in the lead in the world for manufacturing. If you look at their plans, you can see that there is a revolution taking place out there. And biofuels made from, in our case, from a variety, a diversity of feeds, from sugarcane, more of maize, agricultural waste, from gases, from broken food, from bamboo. It's all increasing.
The other aspect that I wanted to ask you, before I go to the second important initiative, what is it for the consumers in the future? Are we really now positioning ourselves as the champion of new energy and a counter to OPEC? Is that the way ahead?
We're not positioning ourselves as champions. We're positioning ourselves as an active participant.
Okay.
I mean, Brazil and the United States are way ahead in terms of domestic production. But let me give you one thing. When we did 10% blending over a 9-year period, we saved 73,000 crores on import bill. And we were able to pay our farmers 76,000 crores. Instead of saying, what does it do for the common man? I'll tell you what it does for the farmer. If we are able, my friend, to introduce 1% blending in sustainable aviation fuel, that is aviation turbine fuel mixed with 1% of biofuels, we benefit 5 lakh farmers. We'll need another 14 crore liters of ethanol to be able to do that. If we set the blending target instead of 1% at 5%, you know what we're able to do? We're able to benefit 70 lakh farmers from 5 lakh. So what I'm telling you is that the possibility is immense. I have a producer in Gujarat who imports ethanol, 93 octane ethanol from Brazil, and sells it in Kenya, because Kenya doesn't have LPG. He uses stoves made of here and puts in ethanol there. The possibilities are immense. And I think what you're witnessing today is that excitement.
I wish we had the time to take this forward, because a lot of people were asking this question. But let me just quickly move to another aspect. The economic corridor. I know this is not really a large part of what you want to discuss about, but I want to ask you this quick question with regards to the BRI. For the longest time, we've been saying that this is a clear violation when it comes to our territorial integrity and sovereignty. Do you believe with the economic corridor which is in the pipeline, it's stumping China and Pakistan?
My dear friend, first of all, the economic sovereignty, taking it through my territory, is a political thing. That is given. I mean, everything that's been said, I endorse that. I'm saying something else. There are countries which have gone into the debt trap because of that. Now, if you give somebody loans, okay, if your central bank is giving the loans, you have the capacity to write it off, but you're not writing it off. If the guy can't pay the loan back, you're telling him, give me your territory instead. So this is a very different ball game. So when we are talking about an India, Middle East, India, Saudi Arabia, India, UAE corridor, our shipping ports to be in link, our shippings to be strengthened, India helping the establishment of railway line, and you're taking that corridor from there to Europe, okay, to Germany, to France, backed by the EU, backed by the United States. It's not an alternate. It's a completely different paradigm.
And what about the politics behind what we are seeing right now as far as the G20 summit is concerned? You've had Mallikarjun Kharge talking about it.
I like Kharge ji, is great fun, but I think you're taking it from a serious discussion to a non-serious discussion. Sometimes he doesn't show up at the Red Fort because he said, I had a problem. So we have to ask him, theek hai na, koi dawai bhej de. But he doesn't show up there. Here, he wasn't invited. What did you want to invite him? Congress chief ministers were there, bhai. Other opposition chief ministers were. He's not a chief minister. This is an event being hosted by the President of India, where the invitees are the President, Vice President, Prime Minister, Chief Ministers of States.
Right.
So when he becomes a chief minister, if at all he does ever, I'm sure he'll get an invite.
Thank you very much, Minister Puri, for joining us on this special broadcast. Viewers, as far as the Global Biofuel Alliance is concerned, there is a lot of talk that was going on. Hopefully, we've been able to answer some of the questions. But these big ticket projects, that's exactly what makes things far more different. Thank you.